advised. The opinions and views of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Welcome to Open House with Gerry Cornejo, where we feature people, places, and things that are in the news or who should be in the news. And you're watching either GNN, Global News Network, or GSAT, and we can be seen and heard nationwide and in 7 Asian countries. So welcome whatever time zone you're in. Now, this evening, today, we're going to be having as guests our Suki, people who have been a group that has been with us for, I think this is the 5th or 6th time. And they are officers and gentlemen from law enforcement agencies and police departments in Northern and Southern California, SFPD and LAPD. And it is known as the Philippine Exchange Training Program. And we'll start off. We have 8 guests today. All right, 8 guests today, and we start off with our guests from the San Francisco Police Department and the LAPD. We have Sergeant Inspector Glenn Sylvester. Glenn, welcome. And we have Officer Arldwin Flores from the LAPD. So, sir, could you tell us a little bit first about P.E.T, about P.E.T.?
Sure, Jerry. Thank you for having us. P.E.T stands for the Philippine Exchange Training Team, to which was developed approximately 12 years ago with a special memorandum of understanding with the San Francisco Police Department by Lieutenant Eric Cuema, who is responsible for bringing us here today. And the program has worked very well over the years, and that's why we're here again today, because of this.
When you say Philippine Exchange Training Program, you actually train your counterparts in the Philippine National Police.
Yes, Jerry. Our kababayans.
Our kababayans.
We are so happy to do so.
Right.
It's exchange of information where we train them, and in turn we take back training from our kababayans as well to see how we can make our jobs better in the things that we do in the United States.
What are your Filipino roots, Glenn? Or what's your Filipino connection?
Thank you for asking. I'm presently married to a Filipina.
Lucky guy.
Very lucky, very lucky. She's from Rosales, Pangasinan.
Okay.
And we've been married 37 years.
Wow, all right.
And I happen to also be half Filipino. My mother is from San Nicolas, San Felipe, Pangasinan.
All right. So now we talk to our, by the way, Sergeant Inspector Glenn Sylvester, how many times? I've seen you here at least 4 times. You've been here how many times?
This will be my 7th trip, Jerry.
7th, okay. So he's a regular with the P.E.T training program. But the first timer here is also our kababayan. He's got Filipino roots. He's now an officer with the LAPD, Officer Arldwin Flores. So welcome, Officer Flores. So can you tell us a bit about yourself, sir?
Magandang hapon po.
Oh, galing.
Maraming salamat.
Right.
I've been with the Los Angeles Police Department for 16 years. Currently assigned to the Firearms and Tactics Section at the Los Angeles Police Academy, training in-service personnel. I was born in the Philippines. We moved to the United States when I was 2 years old. My father was in the Navy, lived all over the United States and around the world. Got introduced to a career in law enforcement during college when at the time it was Sergeant Cesar Solis with the San Diego Police Department was recruiting, and he is now currently the Assistant Chief of Police. However, I did not join the San Diego Police Department. I ended up joining the Los Angeles Police Department, and the rest is pretty much history.
How did you get to join the P.E.T, the Philippine Exchange Training Program?
Well, originally in 2011, I was actually on vacation here in the Philippines
Oh,
to
okay.
visit my grandmother who was suffering from Alzheimer's. I was playing phone tag with Sergeant Glenn Sylvester to see about joining the team and learning more about it. We officially started the Filipino American Law Enforcement Officers Association in Los Angeles, which is a sister chapter of the San Francisco chapter, and started rapport with them. I met Lieutenant Eric Quema through Sergeant Sylvester and attended several training sessions with their team, and I was fortunate enough to be invited.
What sort of training did you impart, or what sort of skills did you impart to your this time around? Well, your first time.
Yes, sir.
Which groups did you see, and what sort of training did you have with them?
Pretty much the departments in California fall under the California Post requirements for the Peace Officer Standards and Training. There are similarities for the basic movements and tactics. However, each department has its own nuances for how they do things. For example, different terminology, different code words, how they conduct their tactics. However, since we do, how would I say, have a standardized format, it's pretty easy to assimilate with each group.
So, which group have you communicated with or dealt with in the Philippines?
Pretty much we dealt with the PNP over at Camp Crame,
All right.
and also too we went to the academy in Silang, Cavite.
Okay. The PNPA, the Philippine
Yes, sir.
National Police Academy. And you were honored with a parade and review, were you?
On Monday morning, sir, when they did the flag raising ceremony.
Okay. Now, Sergeant Inspector Glenn Sylvester, during the first several years that he was here, you were active with SFPD, on active duty, they call it. Now, you've since when have you retired, sir?
I retired back in March of 2011,
Okay.
and the expertise that I bring to the table has allowed me to continue to come here to the Philippines with the group to impart the information.
And what is your field of expertise, sir?
Cybercrime, computer forensics, data retrieval, data forensics. Use a computer to commit a crime. It was my task to bring that data back for evidence.
Okay, so is this something that you've trained or you've taught your counterparts in the, do we have a cybercrime department at the PNP, don't we?
Yes, Jerry, the PNP does. The PNP is so large,
Okay.
and they have many units. One of them is a cybercrime unit, and basically I'm just here to assist them, to provide them another resource,
Okay.
because the Philippines is growing. We got the new cybercrime issues coming up. There are some concerns, and basically just to give them a resource as to where to go, where to find information, why reinvent the wheel if it's already being done somewhere else.
So is this some kind of a classified information only for police officers, or is this something which anybody who's involved with computers can get into, or
Both.
both?
I also teach ways that you can protect yourself while surfing online,
Okay.
so that you would not be subject to predators, say little kids, juveniles, how to protect them. There is some information that is police sensitive, because obviously if we tell them all of our
yes.
secrets,
Right.
then the bad person would
Right.
know how to thwart our attempts to enforce the law.
Okay. Now, one of the things you're very active with is the FALEO. This is the Filipino American Law Enforcement Officers Association. Now, from the name, you have to be a Phil-Am, you have to be Filipino American to join this, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily, Jerry. Apparently, throughout the years, there's been many organizations out there. The Asians, the African American organizations, the Latinos, but nothing really existed for the Filipinos.
Okay.
So we thought it was about time that we developed such an organization, where a fraternal organization within law enforcement, where Filipinos can come together, share cultures and ideas, but at the same time do not exclude other nationalities and races. We're open to everybody.
So
but the main purpose.
you started this, you founded it.
No, sir. It was actually Lieutenant Eric Quema, who was one of the founding members
Oh, okay.
of this
Also.
organization. Yes, sir.
Active guy, huh?
Oh my goodness. Yes. And as a result today, I'm very happy to say that we've grown tremendously.
Okay, and you were earlier, before we began our program, you were saying that Officer Aldwin here is also connected with the Faleo. It's a different. Could you please talk a little bit about that, Officer Flores?
Yes, sir. I'm currently the vice president for the Faleo Los Angeles chapter. Early on, when we started and we inducted our board, I was the treasurer and held the office for treasurer, VP, and president. And then now, following the election, I'm back in the vice president's position.
What is, how many, do you have a head count of Filipino Americans who are in the LAPD?
Yes, sir. Approximately 289 at last count out of 10,000 officers.
Okay,
Very small number of officers. However, Faleo does not just include Los Angeles Police Department. It incorporates the smaller agencies within Los Angeles County, as well as federal agencies, local and state. So we're all inclusive.
What is the highest ranking Filipino-American officer in the LAPD?
In the LAPD,
Yes.
I believe he's a lieutenant, sir.
Lieutenant.
Yes,
Just
sir.
like the SFPD. Well, we have Lieutenant Eric.
Yes, sir.
And the other person who was co-founder of P.E.T.
He's now a lieutenant, sir, and that's Lieutenant Randy Caturay.
Yes, yes, yes.
sir.
Lieutenant Randy has retired, or is he still active?
He is still active.
He's still active. Oh, by the way, before I don't want to forget this, all of this, the reason I was exposed to P.E.T, the Philippine Exchange Training Program, was in one of my visits to San Francisco. I met a classmate of mine, and this is Victor Rottenberg. So, Vic, this one's for you. Thank you very much again. We're connecting Eric and I with this wonderful officers and gentlemen and this wonderful P.E.T program. You know, just so I'm sure I'll make sure he listens to this and that we gave him a shout out. Okay, so Officer Flores, this is your first time in this program, first time in P.E.T. And what are your impressions of the PNP? Your general impressions?
Yes, sir. They've been very generous hosts, very accommodating, very professional organization. I like the fact that they work well together and they pretty much are open to new ideas, new opportunities, and able to share with us their techniques as well. So it was a good exchange program.
Could you tell us a little bit about how you got into law enforcement? Well, you said that when you were in college you were exposed to the law enforcement side. On which side were you exposed?
Well, as any teenager, probably your first experience with a police officer is your first traffic citation for speeding or for exhibition of speed. However, each time I've had an experience with police officers that I've met, they've been very professional. As I said, pretty much the recruitment back in '96 was with the San Diego Police Department, and at the time, Sergeant Cesar Solis, who was a sergeant with the San Diego Police Department, was recruiting. He is now currently the assistant chief of the San Diego Police Department and the highest ranking municipal police officer.
Okay.
As I said before, pretty much that had a big influence on why I joined the police department. It's just that the Los Angeles Police Department's acceptance letter came 4 months before San Diego's did.
Okay. By the way, you have retired now, Sergeant Inspector Glenn Sylvester, but how did you start out with law enforcement?
I needed a job.
Good reason. Good reason. Yeah.
My wife and I got together, and I needed to prepare to raise a family, and I needed a job very quickly. I was going to school to become a medical doctor, and the police came up first. And I said when I entered the police force, I would go back and continue my education. Never did, and I never looked back.
Okay, but how did you become an expert with cybercrime, with computers? Was it, did it require special study? Of course it required special studies. So how did you get into that particular department?
Back in 1980, they brought a computer into the station, and they said only the supervisors can use that computer.
Okay.
And it became an obsession with me to learn about computers.
All right.
So I took a lot of training on my own, made a lot of mistakes, and eventually I became the department's expert.
Okay. Okay.
So it was an obsession with me because they kept it away from me.
All right.
Yes.
And When it comes to cybercrime in your department in San Francisco, is it a major component of the police department? I mean, is it something that a lot of crimes are being committed along in that department, or how's it going?
In the case of cybercrime, Jerry, based upon the type of cybercrime, it depends on how egregious the violation is. If it is if it's against property, then it takes a low priority. If it will hurt somebody against a person, then it takes a higher priority. It depends.
Okay. Now, Officer Aldwin Flores, could you tell us what prompted you or what motivated you to join P.E.T. 2013?
For me, it was a good chance to give back to, like Glenn Sylvester said, give back to the Kababayans. Also, it was an excuse for me to come back to the Philippines.
This is your second time or third
Well,
time?
as a child growing up and being a son of a Navy chief, we spent many summers here during my
Subic?
childhood. Yes, sir.
Okay.
My cousins live in Novaliches, Quezon City,
All right.
and pretty much coming back, it's always parang mas masaya dito.
Okay. Ikaw marunong ka rin mag-Tagalog, hindi?
Oh, konti lang, ah.
Konti din. Okay, so thank you very much, Sergeant Inspector Glenn Sylvester and Officer Aldwin Flores. When we come back, we're going to be having Sergeant Angelo Artificio, Special Agent Lawrence Lagarejos, and Special Agent Epifanio Civilio, right? So thank you very much, gentlemen, and hope to see you in P.E.T. 2014, 2015, and as long as it is around. I'm sure it's going to be around for a long, long time.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay, so thank you very much, and stay tuned. We'll be back with Open House with Gerry Cornejo. We'll be discussing more of the Philippine Exchange Training Program between the PNP and SFPD, LAPD, and law enforcement agencies in the USA. Welcome back to Open House with Gerry Cornejo, where we feature people, places, and things that are in the news or who should be in the news. And the topic we're discussing now is the Philippine Exchange Training Program, where officers from law enforcement agencies in the United States, particularly in California, also at the Department of Justice with LAPD, SFPD, well, they've been coming over to the Philippines for the past more than a decade, and they've been training our own PNP in their respective fields of expertise. And earlier we had with us Sergeant Inspector Glenn Sylvester of SFPD, and also Officer Aldwin Flores of the LAPD. Now we have with us from, I think they're all DOJ special agents. So on my left we have from Sergeant Angelo Artificio from the San Francisco Sheriff's Department.
Yes.
And then we have one of our regulars here. Has been with us a couple of times or more, and that is Special Agent Lawrence Lagarejos, also with the DOJ.
Yes, sir.
Department of Justice, California.
Yes, sir.
All right, and on the far end we have with us first timer like Sergeant Artificio and his Special Agent Supervisor Epifanio Civilio, California Department of Justice.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's start off with Special Agent Supervisor Epifanio Civilio. First of all, Epifanio is a very popular name here. It's EDSA, you know, Epifanio de los Santos Avenue. It's not a very common name, but very popular here. So tell us, Special Agent Civilio, what exactly do you do as a special agent for the Department of Justice?
Currently, Jerry, my command right now is a task force within the California Department of Justice in regards to the investigation of narcotics, violent crimes, gangs. I command a group of officers where in the county of Yolo County, which is in the state of California, where the chief of police have actually put in a detective or an investigator within my task force, which we go out and investigate narcotic-related crimes and also violent crimes in relation to gangs.
Okay, so that's the reason for your long hair.
Yes, sir. You don't actually see it, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, because, yes, he has a ponytail. And, well, the thing is, I mean, you work undercover, I suppose.
We do a lot of intelligence, counterintelligence. We also work in confidentiality in regards to working with members of the community, as well as other special operations units within the state of California and the Department of Justice, sir.
Okay. And what is your, or who is your counterpart here in the PNP that you have dealt with in this present program?
If I had to relate to a counterpart, PNP, of course, but there are also other people that I've got introduced in relation to groups. I would probably say the PDEA.
Okay, the PDEA, Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency.
Yes, sir.
All right. And how did you start off with law enforcement?
Oh, I have about 28 years of law enforcement military experience.
Okay.
I did 4 years in the United States Marine Corps.
All right.
In San Diego, and went all over the world in the West Pacific. And once I did my 4 years, I got honorably discharged. I went back to my hometown in Monterey County, and I applied for a paramilitary, which I was used to already, type of outfit, which was police work. Ultimately, before I was recruited with the Department of Justice, I worked with for a Department of Public Safety, where I was a policeman and a fireman at the same time. So I had to go to 2 different academies.
Okay, so you can be a policeman and a law enforcer and a fireman at the same time?
Yes, sir. There's 3 departments within the state of California, which is Rohnert Park, the city of Sunnyvale, and also Marina, where I came from. But just recently, Marina has separated to 2 entities, which is police and then fire.
Okay, and what would be your Filipino roots?
My Filipino roots, I was born here in Manila.
Okay.
I went to the States at 2 years old.
All right.
My mom is from Cebu. My father is from Iloilo in San Joaquin area.
Bisaya?
Yes, sir.
Do you know how to speak Tagalog or Bisaya?
I could understand, but speaking, it's very hard for me to
How
do.
many times have you been to the Philippines after you left when you were 2?
I would call this my very first time.
Very first time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so welcome. Welcome to your roots.
I am glad to be here, sir.
Okay, now we get to talk to Sergeant Angelo Artificio, who is with the San Francisco Sheriff's Department. Okay, sir, what exactly do you do? What is your work?
I supervise deputy sheriffs.
Okay.
In the States, they have police officers and deputy sheriffs.
Well, what is the difference between a sheriff and a police officer?
It's just different levels of like municipal government, where they have like towns, cities, and counties.
Okay.
The sheriffs serve as the county police.
Okay.
In San Francisco, it's a very unique city and county that its boundaries are continuous, or is the same. So division of labor between the San Francisco Police and Sheriff's Department are defined in that the San Francisco Police does the primary law enforcement patrol on the streets. The Sheriff's Department is in charge of the police force for our court system, our jail system, the most important government buildings and infrastructure, like the hospitals, our city hall, our 911 emergency communications center. We are the resource pool in major emergencies for mutual aid for the San Francisco Police Department.
And what sort of training did you impart to the members of the Philippine National Police during this visit. This is your first visit, by the way?
This is my first visit to the Philippines for P.E.T.
Okay. So what sort of training did you get into, or did you impart?
My specialty is tactical medicine or combat medicine. I also teach first aid, CPR, and AED training for law enforcement. And I also teach officer safety and survival techniques, weaponless defense, impact weapons, ground fighting.
So that means you teach how to treat officers who are wounded
Yes.
during an encounter, during
Yes.
a firefight.
Yes.
This is your specialty.
Yes, this is not basic
Right.
first aid. This is under threat, under hostile conditions, the most appropriate medical care under the most dangerous of conditions.
And this is something which we also have here with our PNP, or
It is
it existing?
It is slowly emerging. I have
Okay.
met a counterpart within the PNP who is imparting the same knowledge, the same standard knowledge that I have. But unless it's been given by the U.S. military who comes here,
Right.
I know of maybe only one or two other people here in the Philippines providing such training.
Okay. We go to Special Agent Lawrence Lagarejos,
Sure.
okay, who's, can you tell us, sir, what your field of specialty, your field of expertise is?
Well, my field of expertise, most of my law enforcement career has been with narcotics investigations and gang investigations. I am a firearms instructor for our department as well as a defensive tactics instructor. When we're here, we try to impart some of the tactics that the officers can use to protect themselves. It could be using a firearm or weaponless defense. Trying to impart upon them what may be at the time the best practices or techniques that we're using in the United States or in California.
Okay, how did you get involved with law enforcement, Lawrence?
Pretty similar to Sergeant Inspector Glenn Sylvester. I was in college to be a doctor, and I had an accident. I had to go get a job, and I started working security at a Pier 39. I'm sure you're familiar
Pier
with
39,
it.
yeah.
And there I met a number of SFPD officers who influenced me to try out for law enforcement.
What's the difference between your work as a special agent for the Department of Justice and a police officer in the SFPD or the LAPD?
Well, in my case, as a special agent, we conduct investigations. I am currently assigned to the Attorney General's, the Deputy Attorney General's office.
Okay.
So I assist the Deputy Attorney Generals in investigations of whatever crime they might be investigating at the moment. At times, it's mostly plain clothes, but when we do enforcement actions, we use what we call the BDUs, the battle dress uniforms, and the typical law enforcement equipment. And we would then serve either arrest warrants, search warrants, all the things that people usually see and equate to the exciting parts of law enforcement.
Okay. Now we start with you, Sergeant, Special Agent.
Yes, sir.
Lawrence Lagarejos. Okay, we start with you. Just for around 30 seconds, your message to the Filipino people, and this is going to be shown in your part of the world. So, oh, by the way, you can tell your relatives and friends you can watch this in real time streaming on www.gnnTV-asia.com. I'll give you the schedule later.
Okay.
Anyway, sir, go ahead. There's your camera.
It's a great time in the Philippines. I enjoy this. Is my 4th time here. I'm looking forward to many, many more times in the future. Philippines is a wonderful country. I'm proud to be Filipino, and I just love the culture, the way my father raised me, the Filipino way.
All right, thank you. And Special Agent Supervisor Epifanio Civillo, sir.
I am very, very proud to be a Filipino. Being my first time here, overwhelmed. I don't have the words. I would love to, I could talk about the Philippines all day. The Philippine National Police have been very accommodating and very professional. And for the Filipino people, again, I am so proud to be a Filipino, especially with the team that I'm with right now and the people that I've been exposed to. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. And we have Sergeant Angelo Artificio, sir.
I like to say hello to my relatives. my mother's side from Karkar, Cebu, and my artificial relatives in San Pablo, Laguna.
And their names are?
Oh, well, just the artificial family
Okay.
in San Pablo, Laguna, and the Alcordos in Karkar, Cebu. It is a privilege to be here with the P.E.T. team, and an honor to be in the company of the PNP that I have had a chance to train with and learn from. And every opportunity I get a chance to go to the Philippines, I look forward to it. I come here usually for leisure, to visit family and friends. This is something where you get to give back to your mother country, and I'm very honored to be here.
So, thank you very much again to our guests. We're going to have another set of guests when you come back, but to Sergeant Angelo Artificio, maraming salamat po. And the same thing to Special Agent Supervisor Epifanio Civilio, and the same thing to Special Agent Lawrence Lagarejos. Maraming salamat po. And hope to see you again here, or one of these days I'm going to be visiting you.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Yes,
so you're watching Open House with Gerry Cornejo, and when we come back, we're going to be having 3 officers who have been here before, and we'll be talking about something else. I think we'll be talking about gun control. And this would be Officer Ray Padmore, Officer Francis Feliciano, and Officer Ray Pasqua of the SFPD. We'll be back right after this. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Open House with Gerry Cornejo, where we feature people, places, and things that are in the news or who should be in the news. And if you've been watching the past segments, or if you just tuned in, the topic for this program is the Philippine Exchange Training Program, where law enforcement officers and special agents from the Department of Justice and other law enforcement agencies in San Francisco and Los Angeles from the LAPD are here to exchange training with our own PNP. And this last group we have with us now have been here before, and I'd like to introduce them to you. From my left, we have Officer Ray Pasqua of the San Francisco Police Department, Officer Francis Feliciano, also of the SFPD, and Officer Ray Padmore of the SFPD. We start with you, Officer Ray Padmore. What is your specialty?
Gerry, first of all, thank you very much for having us. I appreciate
Oh,
coming back. My specialty is bicycle training. Essentially, I'm one of the instructors for bicycle training within the San Francisco Police Department.
Okay, and Officer Francis Feliciano.
Thank you for having us again, sir.
My pleasure.
Thank you. I'm pretty much a well-rounded. I assist with the bicycle patrol, as well as conducting the demonstrations, weapon retentions, and also weapons, impact weapons.
Okay, Officer Ray Pasqua.
Plainclothes operation, Gerry, and also the impact weapons.
Okay, very briefly, I mean, how did you get into law enforcement?
Totally by accident. I had a friend who was, first of all, I had a job that I was not happy at. I had a friend who was in the department who, pushed me to sign up for the job. I did. 13 years later, it's history.
And Officer Feliciano.
Sir, I was a civilian employee of the San Francisco Police Department. I had some very good mentors that assisted me in becoming one of the officers. And after 2 years of being a civilian, I became an officer.
So you were doing civilian employee of the SFPD?
Yes, sir.
Something like Vic Rottenberg? But of course, he's too old to be to start off now. And Officer Ray Padmore, sir, how did you start off with your career in law enforcement?
Sir, my background started with 22 years of military service. And following that, I was looking for opportunities to really continue in that service, uniform service, and be able to seek out the better good and help the community. And law enforcement just seemed to be a natural turn of events.
Okay, sir, do you have any Filipino roots by any chance?
No, not personally, sir,
right.
but my wife is from Leyte. my
Well, there you
wonderful
go.
wife of over 30 years.
Right. So something in common with Sergeant Inspector Glenn Sylvester.
Yes,
You
sir.
have a Filipino spouse.
Yes, sir.
Lucky you.
I feel lucky, sir.
How about, can you tell us again about your Filipino roots, Officer Feliciano?
Yes, sir. I was born in Morong, Rizal. When I was 8 years old, I moved to the States and didn't come back until 23 years later as part of this team. Both my parents are from Morong, and my wife, Joy, she's from May Kawain, Bulacan, and also she has relatives in Sampaloc, Manila.
Okay, and Officer Ray Pascua.
Well, both my parents are from Santiago, Ilocos. I obviously grew up in the States. In
You were born in the States?
I was not. I was born here, but moved
Okay.
here when I was really young. Too young to remember.
Okay.
So
And you're married to a Filipina?
I am not. I'm single.
Oh, okay, good. Good for you. Good for you. Okay, now we'll talk about something different. Although I know you're here because on your fields of expertise, you've been helping to train your counterparts in the Philippine National Police. But you know, big discussion going on now in the United States as well as in the Philippines is gun control, especially after this shocking, horrible massacre of children in Sandy Hook. So now, you know, it's enshrined in your Constitution about the right to bear arms. And in the Philippines, it's not. You know, and I guess it's going to be easier to ban the gun here. But in your particular case, what is your take on banning civilians from owning guns?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that the Second Amendment does guarantee the right to bear arms. In my personal opinion, this is just my personal opinion, not the reflection of the department. I think there should be a stricter laws on who can carry guns, who can own guns, because it's not the regular person that's doing all the killings, doing all these massacres. It's people with mental health issues.
Yeah, but sometimes, like for instance, I think the one who perpetrated this used the guns of his mother.
Correct.
Who had registered firearms anyway.
Correct.
So how do you prevent those things from happening? And if you say that, you know, I mean, gun owners usually say, well, if civilians don't own guns and only criminals will own guns. And personally, I think it's a myth that civilians who carry guns actually prevent crimes from happening. You know, most of the time, they themselves commit crimes of passion, or accidents, or, you know, so tell me, I mean, have you ever come up with a situation wherein a civilian was able to protect himself from a criminal because he was armed? I'm sure it has happened. But what is the percentage of this sort of thing happening compared to, you know, just that? I mean, what is the percentage of civilians being able to protect themselves, actually saving lives and property because they own guns, sir? Anyone,
Well,
please.
sir, what I can tell you is that I'm not sure about the exact statistics on it, but statistics does show that a lot of the gun owners become victims themselves by their own weapons.
Exactly.
So all forms of gun controls is always good to a certain degree, a certain extent. So, and like my counterpart said, it's just my personal opinion, and not necessarily our department. But I do believe that stricter gun control is good in certain degrees.
Okay, how about you, Officer Padmore?
Sir, and I would add the disclaimer as well. This is my personal
Yes.
opinion. There's no question that stricter laws need to be enforced. There's no question about that. However, based on your Second Amendment right, yes, you absolutely have the right to bear arms. But obviously, it should be regulated a little more. And that's my preference.
Okay, but without the Second Amendment, don't you think your jobs would be easier?
So, it
Isn't
absolutely
it so?
would. It absolutely would, sir.
Yeah, because I think I don't know, at least in the Philippines, I don't know of anyone who was really able to protect his life, his family, his property because he owned a gun. I don't know of any. There probably is, I'm not sure.
Yes,
You know, but I haven't heard of any. it's usually, as you said, an accidental shooting within the family. Either the child gets the gun, or there's a crime of passion, or you know, people get drunk and shoot it up in the air. You know, that
Yes,
thing
yes.
that happened
Oh,
here
absolutely,
during
sir.
New Year's.
Yes.
You know, I don't know, you know, why people do that. And so, to me, I'm for a total gun ban. I just, and then they say, you know, well, only criminals will have guns. Well, criminals will always find a way to have guns anyway, right? So,
They will.
to me, I'm for a total gun ban. And definitely, I mean, of course, you grew up in a culture wherein it's enshrined in your constitution, but it will definitely make the job of law enforcers, you know, better. If is it true that you have 300 million guns out there, legal, and
There's a lot of guns.
Approximately.
Lot
We have
of
a lot
guns.
of sportsmen, hunters, target shooters who use these guns legally.
Right.
I mean, you know, the vast majority of law-abiding Americans don't go out and commit crimes.
Right.
It's a really small percentage that do.
Okay, but then I think, you know, I think guns belong to the military and to law enforcers. That's it. I mean, in other countries, like your neighbor, Canada, you know, very, very few people. What is the percentage? A fraction of a percentage of people who get killed with guns or murdered, right?
But you have to look at their population also. We have
Okay.
their population in comparison to the United
Right.
States is very minuscule. California has a larger population than the whole of Canada.
Okay, so would you believe our time is almost over? So, Officer Ray Padmore, your message to the Filipino people or to your relatives and friends who will definitely be watching this clip.
Great.
Sir.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Appreciate the opportunity. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Philippine government, the Philippine National Police for their hospitality in actually inviting us and having us come along to share some ideas in terms of training and the likes. I'd definitely like to send a shout out or thank you to my wife of over 30 years for her support and her commitment over the last 30 plus years, as I've spent many years within the military service and now traveling with
And
the
sir, her
department.
name is?
It's Alice.
There
It's
you go.
Alice, my special person.
We just
And
wanna
thank
make
you,
sure.
Jerry, for having us. Appreciate it.
All right. So, Officer Feliciano, sir.
Well, I want to say hello to my lovely wife, Joy, score some points, and my 3 boys who I brought with me.
Great. They're here now?
They're here now,
Wonderful.
sir. And I want to say hello to my friends and relatives in Morong Rizal. Thank you very much. To my brothers and sisters in the PNP, thank you very much for your hospitality and just for accepting us and having an open mind. I appreciate it very much.
And
Thanks again, Jerry.
Oh, thank you very much. Officer Ray Pascua.
First of all, I want to thank you for having us, Jerry. Secondly, I
My
want to
privilege,
thank
my pleasure.
I want
Go
to
ahead.
thank the Filipino government and the men and women of the PNP. Also, lastly, I want to thank the Filipino people for their hospitality. They've been very warm and generous, and I'm honored and humbled by the experience. Thank you.
Okay, and well, I was just taking a picture here. Good. I mean, I was shown on TV taking. Anyway, the thing is, I hope to see you gentlemen here again more often, and I hope to visit you. I've always, every time I plan to visit San Francisco, something big happens here, and I just can't leave. But then my visa is good for 7 more years, so I'll have 7 more
Excellent.
chances.
We look to you.
We look
to
forward to
visit
seeing
you.
you. Looking forward
Okay,
to
so thank you very much, Officer Ray Padmore,
Thank you,
Officer
sir.
Francis Felician, and Officer Ray Pascua.
Salamat po.
Maraming salamat po for
Thank you, sir.
you know. By the way, these officers, all of these officers we're talking to, spent their own funds. In
That
other
is
words,
correct.
this is not funds by the LAPD or the SFPD or the Department of Justice or the State Department or the U.S. government. They spend their own money and their own time to be with us and to help our PNP, the Philippine National Police, to enhance their skills. So maraming salamat po. Thank you very much for staying with us during the past hour. And with the grace of God, I'll be back again next week with featuring people, places, and things that are in the news or should be in the news. I'm Gerry Cornejo. I love you. God bless you.